Hello, and welcome all to another Pacifism community commentary. Today's episode stars Brian F212, who's been very patient in waiting for me to get around to doing this. He has got a bit more than a 500 million run to be analysed by me. For anyone who doesn't know, as it's been a while anyway, and I've had a few new subscribers recently, and welcome to those guys. This is a series where people send me their Pacifism gameplay, and I offer some thoughts about how it might be improved, and generally open up the floor for other people to offer their thoughts if they so desire. Brian F212, or Brian for short, as I'm going to carry on in this video, his high score I think is 1.4 billion, so obviously 500 million is a little way short of his high score, but it's still more than good enough basis from which to proceed. And I believe he told me that he'd broken a billion about 4 or 5 times, so it's not yet become a super regular occurrence. But he's obviously more than good enough to know his way around the pacifism board, geometry wars board, whatever. And hopefully what I've got to say in this video will help him push on and up his score and become more consistent in breaking a billion. And as always, whatever you think of my input today, please do check out his channel. I've just had a look right now, and he's got a range of stuff on there: Red Dead Redemption, Call of Duty, FIFA, Minecraft. So something for everybody. Okay, let's get on with this. Look at that sweet HD quality. A welcome break from my eye-bleeding capture card. So the first thing I noticed about Brian's playstyle is that he's always moving. He never ever stops to let the blues catch up with him before hitting a gate. Obviously, at the beginning, it doesn't matter a huge amount so long as you get the geome and you kill blues and stay safe. But at this point here, for example, I really don't see any reason why not to make the most of these gates. I would fly to the right of this one and hit it downwards, by which time it will have turned so that it's facing, the explosive end is facing right into the blues, and I'd detonate it and probably take out most of that main cloud of blues there with one gate. But instead, if I just restart it here, you see that he just flies right through, and 2 of those gates really don't do anything. And maybe he was thinking, fair enough, it's early days and we're just killing time here until the run gets started properly. By the way, that was a nice hit, and it's good to see him going back for the geome. But I think it's never too early to start the run in the right way and get yourself in the mindset of conserving gates and hitting them well. On the other hand, you see here that he's very comfortable with sort of close quarters combat. That was really nice, well controlled play. That's perfect, going around the gate like that and making the most of the characteristics of the gate. And that was pretty good too, and most of the geome was collected there. Now this passage of play, I think it's quite indicative of one of Brian's strengths and one of his weaknesses. And when he gets the chance, like when he gets a hit on the gate where the orange part is poking right in like there, he's pretty good at doing the old classic Kanatis spin into the pack, like there, to collect the geome and to wind it in on itself. And that's a key technique. But I'm kind of concerned by the way how he's always moving. I mean, so far in this run, he hasn't stopped a single time. He hasn't taken his foot off the gas. And I think there are 2 real benefits to pausing before some of these gates, and after some of them. Pausing before, obviously, you give the blues time to bunch up around the gate before exploding them, thus doing more damage. But afterwards, I mean, most of you will be familiar probably with my technique of pausing and going back on myself after each and every gate hit. And that's got numerous benefits, but one I've not really talked about before, but actually Cowstore mentioned in a comment a little while ago, is how doing that really gives you time to think about your next move. Even if it's just a series of tiny little pockets of time, it can really help you just get a sense of what's going on the board, all the moving elements and changing dynamics, and then make a much more informed decision. Now if we look at this situation here, what we've got is a series of elements which is quite promising, but in like a not very clear and indefinite way. So we've got at this stage a fairly sizable cloud to be destroyed and a lot of geomes to be collecting. You've got a lot of gates too, which for the most part aren't getting in each other's way. So there's damage to be done, but it's not exactly clear which gate is going to be good or which order he should take them on in. But that one he's going for right now, I think if it's perfect to go into the sort of the thinner end of that cloud. And if he hits it on the right side, and so the left side of it, will do the damage, and then either pauses or goes in to the left a bit without killing himself, obviously, he's got time to just stand still and think, okay, which one of these gates is now the best one to go for? And maybe it'll probably be one of the ones to the right, maybe to take on the smaller cloud there. And this is, I find, is really key for navigating my way through sort of thickets of gates too. If you just go through like at 100 miles an hour, you'll definitely die. But if you can find a way of just picking off each one as an individual and stopping, and even if it's just a very quick stop, I think it's a real space in which to make, like I say, a much more informed decision. But instead, he goes for a big sweeping movement, which doesn't involve any element of pausing. It's one continuous movement. And then, because I think he's not really had a chance to stop and take stock of what's going on, he makes what I would say is a bad decision of going back into the left, as we'll see right now. Oops, my mistake. Okay, he went for the other gate, but same principle, it's the same type of movement. And now, I mean, things are all blocked off and the situation's a lot worse, and he had to go quite a while there without hitting a gate, which allowed the blues to build up. I just think if you're in a situation like before and you've got all those gates to choose from, you got to go for it. You've got to stick around in that area and make the most of it. And like I say, just being more patient with those gates, just having a more measured approach all around, and not being afraid to stand still and let the blues come at you, will really help you make the most of those situations and turn indefinite potential into pretty much guaranteed amount of damage and a good basis from which to proceed. Anywho, that was a good hit, very precise, and now we really come back to Brian's strong suit. I think it's maybe his strongest weapon, which is hitting those gates well and circling in and getting pretty good geom. Again, I do think this would benefit from pausing more and selecting the best gates, and just waiting. Most of these times, just waiting for the gate to get nearer before detonating. And here, I think this is a sort of opportunity that I really try and make the most of. I mean, it's a bit annoying that clump of blue on the right, is coming in, so it makes it a bit more unpredictable. But when you've got this amount of space now, I mean, he did some good damage there, did well to suppress the blues, but they're still a little bit heavy at this stage, as they built up quite a bit. So I think when you've got this amount of space and you've got two gates that are really positioned quite well, I think you have to do the absolute textbook con artist spin. You detonate the gate and leave it as late as possible and sweep all the way in as far as you dare into the blues to get all the geom. Then pause again for as long as you dare again, then hit the second gate. Instead, as you see, he rushes through and then he needs to go back on himself to get that geom. And although it's good that he got the geom, the beauty of the con artist technique is that you don't have to divide those two tasks up. You're killing the blues and you're getting the geom at the same time. And when you divide them up, when you get the gates, then go back for the geom, that time when you're going back for the geom, you're not spending it killing more blues and getting more gates. And as you go into the billions, you need to be doing damage all the time. You need to be constantly suppressing the blues, because once they build up to a certain point, it just becomes a matter of luck how much longer you're going to survive. So you get my point. And I think it all comes down to just, again, taking your time, whether that means taking your time to do tiny little pauses after each gate, or taking the time to realise this is a great opportunity to do serious damage and to really put on your best suit and do your absolute best, shiniest pacifism gate explosion technique. Both are about having, I guess, the confidence to stop and to accept that you don't have to be moving all the time to be doing the right thing. And sometimes the best thing you can do is just stop and observe. And obviously practice and getting a feel of how long you can stop for and how deep into the cloud you can go That's a big part of it, and it doesn't come all at once. But yeah, with practice and with the acceptance that you're going to die trying these new things out, I think the reward is definitely there to be gained. And if I can just pick out one last example of this, because I think this is the main thing I'd like to communicate. The pressure now is getting on. Again, there was a passage there where he wasn't hitting gates, and the blues quickly build up at this point. And the temptation always is to start running more and more, and you become more and more scared of pausing. But you can. I've seen 2-3 billion situations where it looks hopeless, recuperated by doing just the right hits at just the right time. I think it's never too late to stop and make sure you're hitting the gates just right. So here, he's exploded this one gate, and that explosion, it buys you time to stop and make a super quick decision. And obviously it's a lot easier when you got it on freeze frame. And there are probably 3 gates there you could hit. Maybe you could hit the one furthest to the right first, and then those 2 crisscrossing ones. But you wouldn't. I wouldn't see the third one, the one furthest to the right in that situation. But I would see the 2 crisscrossing ones. And if you can hit them individually and spin round after each one, and then wait, and then hit the second one, or if you have to hit them both even, to do so, it means diverting from a natural angle that's the spin he's doing will take you in, which takes you away from those gates. It means going into the blues and stopping and jerking downwards and then hitting those 2 gates. That's not a natural movement, but it's the one that's gonna inflict serious damage. And as you're hitting those 2 gates, you're guaranteed you got the shield of the explosion they're creating. As you hit them, you can then be using that time to look around you and see now where's the best place to go. Then hit that gate and then pause, and hit the next gate and pause, and always be looking to hit them as late and as deep as possible in the hope that you can suppress the blues enough to get them back under control, and then carry on in a very controlled and deliberate manner. But instead you see him leave those gates, I think because he's not taking his time enough, and ends up dragging the blues all across the map, which spreads them out. And then you just get more and more panicked, Excuse me. And I think all these hits would benefit from stopping and pausing more and hitting them more deeply, but I think it gets to a point where your kind of panic just overloads, and you're just not able to do that anymore. The pressure builds, and then I think that's kind of inevitable. That kind of death, it comes about because it's spent sort of 2 or 3 minutes now moving continuously without ever stopping. And that just creates, I think, such a frantic mindset, one which perpetuates itself. I don't want to sound too down, like I'm always worried about. I'm just trying to express as clearly as possible what I think can be improved. And I think, I've said it several times now, stopping and taking stock more and giving yourself space to think will help reduce the odds of that kind of death. It just stops you from cultivating that frantic mindset, and every gate, as well as being an opportunity to hurt the enemy, it's also an opportunity to think about your situation and what the next course of action should be, and that's that. Having said all that, I think he's clearly got a very, very solid game, and some of the close control under pressure there was exceptional, and I think there's definitely, not just for Genesis, I think he's already developed a good technique with the gates. It's just a case of being sure to maintain that under pressure, and then you're trying to add something to that game, which I didn't develop until my high score was something like 3 or 4 billion, so it's a real late game strategy, but I think it's never too early to try and start implementing these things. And from the very beginning, the continuous movement that he was doing was what really stood out for me, and I think that's the only obvious thing that I would seek to try and to rectify. So I do hope this has been useful. Sorry again to Brian for taking so damn long, and as always, any counter arguments, critiques, whatever, please go right ahead. See ya.